In After Effects, there's 5 key components, and this video is about the first. After Effects is a combination of Premiere Pro and Photoshop. This is a really helpful link that you can see the overview and see how Adobe will introduce new features and the basics to After Effects. Sometimes when we're describing After Effects, we'll talk about it as Photoshop in motion or motion graphics or time-based media. I want to start by what is a composition, and you need to know what a composition is to create any type of video form in After Effects. So we'll go over where you're going to build your graphics, how you can nest compositions within compositions, creating a new composition, the settings, and importing. All right, so I'm going to hop over here to After Effects, and I'm going to close out this welcome screen and go to the main interface. Now, in this main interface, it might look like this, but it might not. Sometimes it jumbles up all the palettes. So all your palettes are in Window, and the ones that you're really going to need is obviously your timeline. So I always go to Window, Workspace, and if we say, you can see that you can set up your area. So if I go to All Panels, and then I can also see how I can drag and drop these. Now what you really want is the timeline across the bottom. You want your project bin on the left, and then you want all your palettes on the right that you can arrow down and have this accordion style. What we're going to start off is by making a new composition. So when I hit a new composition, it's going to give me some options. This composition is where you're actually going to build the animation. Now, let's give it a name, and I'm going to start this off by saying intro. So this is going to be my little animation intro. And for the presets, you can choose all different sizes. Now, this is going to be a little overwhelming, but what I want you to use is HDTV 720 29.97. This is not the high definition, which would be 1080, just like a TV screen. We're kind of doing the a little bit lower quality, and the reason being is that we're not going to have this on a big screen TV, and we don't want the file size to be huge. We don't want your computer to overheat. This 29.97 is the frame rate, so how many frames will go in 1 second. So that's a lot of frames. It's going to be nice and crisp and smooth, and you can see that it has these the width and height will automatically be set based on this preset. Finally, the most important factor here is the duration. So the duration being how long you want this to be. And I'm just going to have this be 11 seconds. I'll change it to 10 so we can just have something change. So 10 seconds is how long. And then the background color. Important to really take your time and think about these composition settings and then press OK. You can see over here now in your project bin, you have a composition. And it'll say it's a composition here. It'll also have a circle, square, and triangle on the left-hand side. Now I have to bring some things into my project bin so I can use it on my composition. So I'm going to double-click anywhere in here, my project bin, or I could do File, Import Files, either or. I'm going to double-click in here. I have a couple things I want to import. So I'm importing in a movie that I recorded. This is a movie of me using my app from XD, and I recorded this using QuickTime. I'm bringing in my app icon. I'm bringing in some music. So I have a little groovy tune to put in the background, and then I'm going to also bring in a mock-up of a phone. So I'm going to bring all these in, and it all depends how you want to bring this in. I mean, let's start by just bringing in, I'm going to start by just bringing in this icon. You can see here that it'll give you options of how you want to bring that in. You could bring it in as a composition or footage. So footage I would bring in for anything that doesn't have layers. So if you have, for instance, an Illustrator document that has layers, I would bring it in as a composition so it will maintain those layers and we could animate things within that. So I'm going to say OK. So now it brought in my diet icon here, and it brought in the layers. I had 2 layers in there, a background and then the item itself. So I can see now that has its own composition. So here you can see the composition. If I double click on it, whatever you double click on will show in this main composition window. So in my intro, I'm going to drag in whatever I want to animate. So I want to drag in my diet icon and drop that in. You can see it right down here in my timeline. And then I'm also going to make a new layer of text. That's going to say the name of my app. I'm going to say Healthy You, all capitals. And I can use my arrow up here at the top. You cannot have cap lock on. If something like this happens, you have to turn off your cap lock. And you can see that I can use my move tool and my text tool to create the name of my app in this instance. Now, if I want to change the background color of this composition, I'm going to make a shape. So I'm going to go to Layer, New, and make a new solid. And I highly recommend always putting a background color behind because white ends up turning black when you render it. So I'm going to do solid and I'm going to choose my color. I'm just going to choose, I'm going to eyedropper this green color back here. Maybe I'll do a darker green. I can reorganize my layers down in the timeline to have that layer be on the bottom. You can see over on the left-hand side, I can lock that layer if I wanted to. So now I have 3 items in my composition. Now, I want to animate these items. Right now, everything's static. I just brought everything in. I imported my AI, I typed out my name, and I created a background. How we're going to do that is with keyframes. And what we'll see here is we need to be able to build our graphics. We already nested a composition within a composition. And you see that here. So we nested this diet icon into it by just dragging that in. And now we're going to animate. So on each one of these, you can arrow down on your layer and be able to animate that layer. Depending what it is, it'll give different options. So we have this text, this diet icon, and then the background. I'm going to not animate that green background, so I'm going to just lock that in place. But on the diet icon, I just want that to kind of come in. One thing that's really common with animation is animating backwards. So I can scrub my timeline to where I want this to end. So I want this to end about here, and I'm going to just animate the position of it. So I'm going to hit the little stopwatch here to create a keyframe. Now a keyframe is this little diamond shape you see here. Now I would zoom in, but it would get a little wonky. That is creating, I can move this over. That is a keyframe. Almost think about it like a bookend. So if I have a diamond here, and then a diamond, I'm going to scrub my timeline down to here, and make another diamond. I hit that by hitting this keyframe icon on the left here. And move this. So I'm going to say I want it to start up above. Now that I have 2 diamonds, I set the position for both of them. You can see I have this one here. That's why I went backwards, because I already had that in the correct position. And then this keyframe here. Now when I press spacebar on the keyboard, it's going to animate in. Now I can move these keyframes, so I can move this closer, and if it's closer, it's going to move quicker, right? Move that in. I could also set another keyframe here, so I want it to go a little too far, down a little bit further, and then bounce back up. Like so. And then what we can do to this to kind of help it is add some easing. So I'm going to just select all 3 of these keyframes. So I'm holding Shift and clicking on each one of those diamonds. I'm going to go down here to the bottom where it says Toggle Switch and Modes. See how you can switch back and forth? And what I want to do is add a little bit of easing. So what I can do here, you can see they add kind of, there's some moments up, some little buttons. I'm going to hit the motion blur, which is going to help. And then I'm also going to right click on these keyframes. I'm going to do keyframe assist and easy ease. That's going to change the icons from diamonds to these little, I don't know what you'd like, almost hourglasses. And it's just going to make it a little smoother. There we go. So we added a little extra to that. So we made it our keyframes and then add some easing and motion blur. All right, that's good. I'm going to arrow up on that and lock it. Now I'm going to do the healthy U. So healthy U, I want to start coming in. I can start about, I want to start right about here when, you can see the little motion blur on that, when the icon's about to bounce back up. And I'm going to use an effect and preset. So over on the right side, I'm going to go under animation presets, and I'm going to go to text. And you can see there's so many that you can play with. And I'm just going to, how about animate in? We'll keep it really simple. And you can pick which one you want. So I'm on that layer. I'm on the healthy U. And let's try fly in with a twist. And I'm just going to drag it and drop it on top. Then hit spacebar and see what that does. I barely saw the twist, but I guess there's a little twist in there that you can see. Now, if you don't like that one, you can Command Z or Control Z if you're on a PC and try a different one. Let's try pop buzzwords. No. Raining characters in. Kind of neat, but not for mine. I think I'm going to stick with fly in with a twist. Perfect. All right, so let's just watch this animation here. This comes in, and then the words come up. All right, so now over here on the left-hand side, you can see an effects control popped up. I'm just going to close that by hitting this little X because my project bin's behind it. You can see it started tabbing this out. So I want to click on project to get back to it. And the only thing I want to do here is I want to shorten my composition. So after I'm finished with it, you can see I want this to come up and I want it to hold for a second, but I don't need all this extra time at the end. So I'm going to go to composition settings, and I'm going to just make it from 10 seconds. I'm going to take it down to, let's just say 8 seconds. Better. All right, so we have that come in and pause for 2 or 3 seconds. Perfect.